Thank you.
Well, thank you, Pastor, and thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. Are these some chaotic days we live in? They are. And I will tell you, this is our mission, to be Christians in a chaotic world. So the pastor asked me to talk to you a little bit about my history. Yeah, he mentioned where I went to school, but really the two most important things that changed my life, the few most important things, obviously, I met Jesus when I was 15 years old. I was a basketball player. I was a gym rat. If you know what a gym rat is, I spent as much time in the gym as I could. And a professional basketball player came and talked about Jesus. So I was like, there's something more important than basketball? So that's when I accepted Christ. I married my wife just after I graduated from college. And we have now been married for 49 years, so we're working on number 50. So that's coming up, and we'll try to do something worthy of 50 years of marriage. I served in the infantry. I was in the airborne infantry. By the way, I just jumped into Normandy out of a C-47 aircraft in June. Great fun. In fact, I just saw a video of the plane I jumped out of, which was on the D-Day invasion. But being in the airborne infantry and then later the special forces, the Green Berets, there were plenty of chances to exercise my faith. Because as you can imagine, the Army is not a place that has a majority of Christians in it. I mean, if you've heard the words, I've heard the words, probably a lot more. So there was a lot of opportunity to exercise my faith in the military. Specifically, and I don't talk much about it because I tried to talk about it once to my Sunday school class. And when I gave all of the details, they were looking at me like that. So I've stopped doing that. But there was an opportunity in combat zone one time that I did not disobey the order. I asked to be relieved of the order because it was everything you can think of: immoral, illegal, unethical, the whole thing. So there are plenty of opportunities in the military to exercise my faith. And obviously, being married for 49 years, there's plenty of opportunity to exercise your faith during that time. But what I want to talk to you about is the days we're in, because these are chaotic days. These are days where I think we have seen a moral decline in America. And frankly, that's where you come in. You are made for days like this. We should not hang our head and say there's nothing we can do, the decline is real. We are made for days like this. And let me just talk to you about a couple of things that I think are important. One is to be genuine. To be a genuine person who lives in a fallen world as a disciple of Christ, but we live in a fallen world. Be genuine. My wife has a tremendous censor for people who are not genuine. The best thing that my wife can say about you is you are a real person. And she doesn't mind telling you if you're real or not. I mean, telling me, she doesn't tell the people. But be genuine. I think that's one of the most important things you can do. And then the second thing I want to talk to you about is this epidemic of loneliness. Now, I'm not going to talk to you about your culture because I don't really know your culture. But across America as a whole, there is an epidemic of loneliness, of isolation. I'll never forget the day I was walking down a hall in our office building in D.C. I had an intern with me and I had a young employee. So these are both in their 20s, both in their young 20s, okay? So these are young people. One male, one female. I said, what do you think about, what is the chief feeling of young people today? Because, you know, I don't get to talk to 20-year-olds that much, but my staff is young. And the guy gave a pretty good answer. But the young lady hit it on the head. She said, it's loneliness amongst young people today. And that's, again, where we come in. And I'll address that in just a few minutes. But she went on to say that, I said, well, what'd you do this weekend? She just told me that epidemic of loneliness. She said, well, I and a couple of girlfriends had we zoned out on movies. And I said, you zoned out on movies? You're here in D.C. where almost everyone is young and unmarried. I mean, that's all you have in D.C., primarily, except the old people like me, young and unmarried. And she looked at me and she said, she's a Texan now, so I'll be honest with you, she's a Texan. She looked at me and she said, do you think I want any of these men? But loneliness is the point here. Now let's get to the real crux of the matter. Yeah, people are lonely, but that's where you come in, and that's where I encourage you not to run a social club. What was the first thing that John the Baptist said in his ministry? Repent. What was the first thing that Jesus said in his ministry? Repent. I think that in many of the churches today, that's what's missing here, because you can run a social club. Come in, enjoy the fellowship, be a part of the group, be loved. Because what does everyone want in their life? They want to be loved, they want to be accepted. So you can run a social club, but folks, there are a lot of social clubs out there. What America needs today is in Daniel 9, Daniel's great prayer in Daniel 9 to say, we have sinned, we have left you, we need your forgiveness. And frankly, at the end of that prayer, he says, we don't do this, we don't ask this because of our righteousness, but because of your great mercies. So I encourage you to be genuine, to fight the epidemic of loneliness that we see in our country today. And again, I'm not trying to tell you your culture, Pastor, but I think across America there are people that you could help. And frankly, at the end of the day, I think you ought to be honest, and part of that genuineness is preaching the whole gospel. And that starts with not being a social club. It starts with repent, because we are all sinners. So my life, I've had plenty of opportunities to exercise this, and when you've lived as long as I have, and when you've been married as long as I have, you kind of realize you are part of this fallen world, and only by the grace of God do we have forgiveness of sin, salvation in Him. And I want to leave you with, not I want to leave you, but the next thing I want to talk about is John 16:33. Now, everyone in here probably knows that this is the Last Supper, the discourse in the upper room. So what we're talking about here is the last long meeting that Jesus had with his disciples before the crucifixion. Because that night he went to the Garden of Gethsemane and everything went from there. So this is the last long discourse with his disciples. What do you think Jesus is thinking? What is he feeling in this last discourse? Probably a lot of pathos, a lot of knowing this is the last. So he's deeply involved. This is the washing of the feet early. This is Judas leaving, being given the bread and leaving. And then at the last, in both in chapter 14 and then in chapter 16, he had two similar verses. I'm only going to focus on the one from the 16th chapter of John. And this is, believe it or not, this is recorded for us. This is the last comment he made to his disciples before he went to the great high priestly prayer in John 17. So John 17 starts the great high priestly prayer, but in the last verse of John 16, it says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. How important is that? We could go to Philippians 4, we could go back to John 14, peace in this world. Let me finish up and then I'll get back to that. So I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. You will have suffering in this world. It's a part of being genuine, folks. Your people need to know that you're not going to take them out of the world. You don't have that authority to take them out of the world. So they're going to be in the world. They're going to experience life. They're going to experience loss. They're going to experience disappointment. But you will have suffering in this world. Be courageous. I have conquered the world. I have overcome the world in most of the translations. So how do you give peace to your congregations in a chaotic world? Back to this chaotic world that we live in. Everything is chaos. The economy is in chaos. The political world is certainly in chaos. The world is in chaos. You look at the Middle East, it's in chaos. Around the world, do you know that the Institute for Peace and something says that we have more conflicts, wars going on today than we have since World War II? 56, they count. Now, the big ones we know, Ukraine, Gaza, but we've also got Sudan, we've got the Congo, 56. And the hard thing is that the majority of them, there are 92 countries involved in war today, so a lot of them have an international component. So how do you give peace to your congregation? I will tell you, I think it comes from the sovereignty of God. Charles Spurgeon said, and I think I'll get this exactly right, he said, the sovereignty of God is the pillow upon which the child of God rests his head every night in order to have peace and rest. I encourage you as pastors, because I cannot tell you how important pastors across America are. The church cannot be silent today. I'm a politician. I'm an elected official. I'm not going to save anybody in this world. All I'm doing, I've got my finger in the dike like the little Dutch boy trying to hold things back. But I can't make things right. Y'all are the people that can make things right in people's lives. I cannot. Y'all are the ones that can make things right for people by preaching the whole gospel. Repent and know the salvation, the joy of your salvation in Jesus Christ. So I will tell you, people look to their politicians to do too much. I look to the pastors and ask you to do more in people's lives, because y'all are the ones that can make a difference in people's lives in peace in a chaotic world. So that's what I would like to tell you about. But as a politician, I guess I'm supposed to stand up here and tell you how great politics is and all of that. I'm not here to tell you that. I'm here to encourage you to bring peace to your congregation in a chaotic world.